Hello, movie lovers. Welcome to a trip into the movie world of lesbian vampirism with a gothic twist. And this is the 1971 Belgian movie, Daughters of Darkness. Although it's a Belgian movie, it is in English. All the actors spoke English. There was no post dubbing. This is the actors' real voices. This is an absolutely amazing Blue Underground presentation of Daughters of Darkness. It's a 4K UHD. The UHD was, I don't know whether yeah, I guess you can pick it up with the camera's picking it up. I don't know what you call it, sort of a 3D hologramish kind of, I know there's a name for it, but I can't remember it. But this is a 4K UHD release from last year, I believe, and I've been a little bit I haven't been raising the rafters in my praise of UHD, but after seeing this and Circle Rouge recently, my last video, in fact, I'm really starting to come around, especially for these older movies. Circle Rouge had muted colors, to be sure, but it looks so filmic. But Daughters of Darkness is just it's just a gorgeous looking film. The colors are so vivid, and especially the color red, as you might imagine. And there's a commentary. There's actually three commentaries included in this Blue Underground presentation. One is by Kat Allenger. Now, Kat Allenger wrote a book about Daughters of Darkness. And it's not a book, it's the book on Daughters of Darkness. So she has a lot of information. But she says in the beginning of her commentary that she had seen the movie so many times before in different media formats. She was just astonished when she saw the beauty of this restoration. And the release comes with the alternate cover art, which I placed on this is the alternate cover art, and the slipcase and the booklet. This is the cover art that came with the release, and I'll probably go back to that because I think I like that more. There's 3 discs, one for the UHD, one for the Blu-ray, one for the soundtrack. And there's a great soundtrack on here. The composer's name was Francois Durobain, and he died very young, but he did. I noticed one credit of his. He did Jean-Pierre Melville's La Samurai. So we get a really nice presentation from Blue Underground here, and the story opens up with the newlyweds on a train having sex. This is a gory movie, but it's also a sex movie, as movies in the early 1970s were wont. There's a lot of nudity in the supplements. The actresses talk about how natural it was for them. They didn't have any problem at all with the nudity. He said, of course, nowadays, we're now living in a much more puritanical time. They would have thought twice about it today. But they're on a train. It gets delayed. They're going to England to meet the husband's family, who have never met the new wife. But they have to spend some time in Ostend and in Belgium. So, and this is the newlyweds checking into the hotel, and they have to. It's off season, so the hotel, this luxury resort hotel in Ostend, is empty. They appear to be the only guests in this hotel. And along the way, the husband is showing some shifty signs of maybe he's a little sadistic. His relationship might not be as healthy as it might appear to be. But then comes while they're eating a dinner in an otherwise empty dining hall, in comes the Countess Batarae, and this is Delphine Searig, and she comes in with her secretary, so-called secretary, and she spots the couple eating. They're a very attractive couple, And you see that she's got some plans for them, and gradually she will insinuate herself into their honeymoon. And the Countess Batarae is actually a historical figure, and she was, I think it's 14th or 15th century, and she was accused and convicted of several murders of young women. There's estimates that range up to 600, and she wanted their blood. She bathed in their blood. None of that was proven, and she was spared death by the fact that she was a noblewoman, and she was confined to her castle as her prison for something like the last 20 years of her life. And originally, Harry Kummel, who was the director and co-writer of the movie, and his producer, they wanted to make a costume drama of Madame Batarae, but there was not enough money for that. So they came up with the idea of making her immortal, and so she arrives at the hotel, and the concierge looks at her and he says, "I was a bellboy here 40 years ago when you came here as a guest, and you looked exactly the same." Delphine Searig gives such an incredible performance. She's quiet spoken, but she has sort of maternalistic relationship at times with this young couple, but she's sinister. She can be terrifying, and her cadences of her dialogue. Kummel says he and Searig worked very hard on where to make the pauses. And also the way she's filmed. This is very much a tribute to Marlene Dietrich. When the Countess makes her entrance into this hotel in Ostend, she comes in quickly, and she said that she had watched Dietrich in Angel the week before, and there's a scene where Dietrich comes in, and she doesn't just slowly saunter in, she comes in with a head of steam, and as does Delphine Searig. And also, there's really, in the photography of the film, and especially of her, there's intimations of Shanghai Express, the last film that Dietrich made with her Svengali, Joseph von Sternberg. And Searig, I learned in the credits, I didn't really know her career in all that much depth. I've seen her many times, and she's great in everything I've ever seen her in. But she was actually in America in the 1950s, and she didn't study yet, but she attended a lot of actors' studio classes. And I was really surprised to find that she was on American TV, and right before she was discovered by Alan Renee for the last year at Marienbad, she was in the first 3 episodes of a TV sitcom called Pete and Gladys with Harry Morgan playing the French next door neighbor. But she was also in Sherlock Holmes, the 1954-55 version that in English that was filmed for American TV but filmed in France. And that's on YouTube, I think, all the episodes. And it's a pretty good, for 1954-55, it's a pretty good, they're pretty good adaptations of the Sherlock. They're like half-hour Sherlock Holmes stories. Most of them, the actual stories from Conan Doyle. And she's in 2 of them. I haven't seen those 2 yet, but I've seen a bunch, and that's a series that I'd love to see be restored. And of course, then Alan Renee discovered for last year in Marienbad, and she was, and then in Muriel's, and she was in Jean Dielman for Chantal Ackerman, probably her most signature role. But Renee, when they were, Harry Kummel and his producers were casting, they had to have her for that, and she was reluctant at first. But Alan Renee, who liked these kind of movies, he really encouraged Searig to make this film. And the other 2 actresses were very inexperienced, and one was the German Andrea Rau. She plays the secretary. The newlywed wife was Danielle Omey. She was a French-Canadian actress. Both of them have been in sort of soft-core films in the late 60s, early 70s. In fact, Danielle O'May, she was in a pretty big hit called Valerie. I think it was the highest grossing Canadian movie at the time. And Searig really puts them under their wing because they were so nervous. They're going to, by 1971, Searig was almost like a legendary actress, and here they were having to have scenes with her, and she would say, "Oh, I need to practice my lines. Can you practice with me?" Searig would tell either one of the two actresses, but it was for their benefit. And then the newlywed husband is played by John Carlin, and he was experienced in TV acting. In fact, he was one of the stars of the television version Dark Shadows, where I believe he played a vampire. And then later on, he had a recurring role in Cagney and Lacey. So the cinematography is by Edward van der Enden, and he just does a fantastic job here. I mean, it's just the way he was known for really being good at close-ups of females, and this is like sculpted faces. And in one of the supplements, they show a shot of Delphine Searig, and then they show a shot from Scarlet Empress with Marlene Dietrich, and you can see the kind of tribute and inspiration that the cinematographer brought to this film. We'll get some interviews. There's one really good one with Harry Kumel and his co-producer Pierre Dubois, and they, I guess from the early 2000s, they revisit the hotels. They actually filmed the exteriors in the Ostend Hotel and the dining room there, and then they filmed the rest of the interiors because almost the entire film, there are some outdoor scenes, but most of the film is in the hotel. That was filmed in Brussels, and then they actually had to combine certain scenes together to make the two the decor kind of match together. So they're very amusing together. And the way they remember the film and how much fun they had making it, because they really wanted to make a commercial film. This is often thought of as an artsy movie, which it is. It definitely has very artsy. It's not a horrifying movie. It has some horrifying scenes in it, but it does have this artsy flavor. Obviously, if you're going to be being inspired by Joseph von Sternberg. As I said, 3 commentaries. One is with Harry Kumel. I did not listen to that. One is with Jose Del Val and John Carlin, which I guess was from a few years ago. Carlin died in 2020. I listened to a little bit of that, and that sounded pretty interesting. But I did listen to the entirety of Kat Allenger's commentary. It's one of her best, and why not? I mean, she wrote a book about it. And she tells all about the history of female vampire movies, which were kind of a rage in 1971, and what they drew upon the original story. And then in the book, we get a very good essay that gives you everything you could possibly want to know about the pre-production, the production, and the release. And as with all independent films, it had a spotty release, but it was a major success. Even here in the U.S. And in fact, it was brought back. It played in 1971, then brought back in 72. Now it played basically in big cities. It played at double bills with other movies, but it played a lot. And I remember seeing it on marquees, but it was a marquee on 42nd Street. Now, I did not go to the movie theaters on 42nd Street in the 1970s. That was not a place I was going to inhabit. But a really good psychological horror. I would call this a psychological horror movie. And I got this because I read what a great 4K UHD look to the film, the Dolby Vision, which I really love, Dolby Vision. But I'm going to, in my 1972 my trip through the films in 1972, month by month. In the month of April, I'm going to do horror films. Not my cup of tea, but I'm not the greatest horror film fan. But in order to get an in-depth history of 1972, I gotta cover horror movies as well as many other genres. So thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen to me. As always, comments are welcome. Take care.